Hi, and welcome to our high school football season wrap-up. I'm Kelly Hines here with Barry Lewis. Barry, season's over, and it was a great one. Before we talk about the season in review, let's look back at last week.
Yes, it was a tough weekend for the local teams as Cassia Hall lost in 3A to Anadarko, and Woodland in Class A fell to Wayne. Cassia Hall looked like they were on their way to their fourth state title in 5 years. They were up by 10 points late in the third quarter, and then all of a sudden they got derailed by turnovers, and Sheldon Wilson was just too much for Cassia Hall in the end. And I also think Anadarko's underrated defense, they just had an outstanding game. For Cassia Hall, what a great way, even though it was in defeat, a great way for Hunter Hart and Connor Sherwood, at least from an individual standpoint, to close out their careers. Even though Cassia lost, shouldn't overlook their tremendous effort in that game. Connor Sherwood, 13 tackles, forced a fumble. He's committed to TU. Hunter Hart looked like early in the game he had suffered a knee injury that was going to sideline him for the rest of the game, but he comes back and winds up with a game-high 14 tackles, 5 for losses. He was just outstanding, such determination. So Hunter Hart, Connor Sherwood, they end their football careers at Cassia with 2 state titles, 3 title game appearances. And for Woodland, a great effort against Wayne, but they lost 35-28. Josh Way and Wayne was just too much for Woodland to overcome. So Woodland's dream of a second consecutive undefeated season fell just a little bit short, but still it was a great year for Woodland. And Kelly, when we look back at the playoffs or at the season in general, what stands out to you?
Well, I think that Cassia Hall's semifinal victory against Oklahoma City Heritage Hall, that's one of the best games I saw all season. And although they did fall in the title game, that was a really exciting win for them, in the final minute, stopping a big-time player like Barry J. Sanders inches from the end zone and coming away with the win when obviously, Heritage Hall was the favored team. And that was just one of the highlights of the year just because, when games get toward the end of the season and late in the game when there's a big play like that, especially by a defense that's so, well known, that was definitely one of the highlights for me. What about you?
Well, when I think back at the playoffs, what I'll remember most is Union winning a 4th straight state title, winning their last 3 games by 1 point apiece. That's just incredible. Their defense just somehow found a way each week to come up with the last-minute stop, and that is so hard to do. And they capped it off with wins over Jenks in the semifinals and Broken Arrow in the finals. Just an incredible job by the Union defense led by Blaise Walser, and of course Colby Evans, who scored the winning TD on a fumble return. And so I'll remember that, as well as Wagner. The Road to Redemption tour wound up with a state championship win over Clinton, 23-0, and what an emphatic statement that was. Kevin Peterson, tremendous game. Wagner's defense with probably the most physical performance I saw at any level this year. So that's what I'll remember from these playoffs, as well as from the past weekend. Sheldon Wilson and Josh Way in their respective championship games just putting together tremendous rushing performances. Josh Way nearly rushed for 3,000 yards. Sheldon Wilson way over 3,000 yards. They just put an exclamation point onto their outstanding seasons.
Yeah, it's interesting how things turned out. I think I looked at the teams I had picked to win titles in the preseason. I think the only one I had right was Union.
I think that's probably the case with me as well. This was there have been some years where going into the playoffs, not just myself but several others on the staff and our staff picks, we'll pick 3, 4, 5 of the 8 classifications correctly when it comes to state champions. I think this year about the average was 1.
Yeah.
And so it was an unpredictable year, that's for sure. Something to look forward to in the next couple of weeks are all Metro and all state football teams. All Metro football team is scheduled for the edition of Saturday, December 24th, and the all-state team will be published on Sunday, December 25th, where we'll announce our players of the year, coaches of the year, as well as all the first team, second team, and honorable mention selections. And Kelly, we'll also be doing all Metro selections in other sports.
That's right. next week we'll have all metro for cross country, and then volleyball, and then softball. So that's something to look forward to. Thank you for joining us this season. I'm Kelly Hines here with Barry Lewis.